Well, good morning, Oakcrest, and thank you so much for joining us today. Now, every now and again we do like to bring some former Oakcrest employees on, and in this case we have a WOCV intern from about 5 or 6 years ago. For those of you who remember, it's GoeCrock. Joe, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Now we have you here to tell you all about a special hobby of yours, but before we do get into that, tell me about what you've been up to over the last couple of years.
Well, when I left here after being an intern, I started working for Baltimore County Public Libraries.
Oh, right, yeah.
Started in circulation full-time, and I'm now a librarian. So
Right.
I actually was just promoted to go to Essex as a supervisor. So I'll be moving from Towson down to Essex and just continuing my career with them.
So have the library rules changed a lot, or is it still, you're constantly walking over to the kids who are being loud? Shh, is there a lot of that still?
Oh no, that is
No.
totally going out the window
Yeah.
now. They can be very loud places at times, very exciting places. There's tons of toys, educational toys for the children to play with, and it can be very loud and kind of like a playground at times. So
Yeah, I mean, it's much more interactive now, I think, with technology. That
Right.
was when you'd sit in the corner and read a book. Now everybody's just interacting, they're on the computers,
Right.
having a great time.
yeah, it's more of a community meeting place, as we like to say now. So people come there to do technology work or to learn in a different way,
Right.
rather than just sit down and quiet and read a book.
So what would you say a typical day for you would be there?
Well, I spend about an hour in the children's area, so helping kids, sometimes have to discipline the children for throwing toys or something. So you help kids for about an hour, and then you assist people on the phone with any reference questions for about an hour, and then you're on the desk for about an hour assisting with computer questions or walk-up reference questions.
So you used to do, quite a bit of editing and things when you were here. Are you still doing that on the side?
I still do my work here sometimes on the weekends in the chapel sound system. I help out there. So I do a little bit of work, but the editing, sometimes people ask me, I work with some people that have gotten into it just doing amateur work, and so, help them with questions and stuff like that.
So those residents that were sitting here watching saying they couldn't quite place you, that's where they know you, from the chapel here. So
Yep.
you're here on Sundays and you're running the camera in there, and the sound,
Yep.
and the lights, and that kind of thing. Great.
Yep. It's fun. It's great to work with everybody and come here every Sunday. I mean, everybody's very warm and welcoming, and it's a pleasure to work with everyone.
Great. Well, we're happy to have you. Now let's get into it. You're here because you have a very unique hobby, right? Tell
Yep.
us about your hobby.
I am someone that goes out and I get pictures with celebrities.
Yes. Pictures
as-
of you and the celebrity. Right?
Yes, I guess you can call it the selfie now, is what it's
Right.
coined.
So you're telling me you invented the selfie.
I guess you could kind of say that.
Right.
Yep.
So when did this start?
It started about 10 years ago in 2005. I used to write for autographs through the mail, and I was running out of people, and someone said, well, you can go to New York and get these people in person. So originally it just started out as getting autographs, and then someone said, ask for a picture because most of them will do it. So I did start to ask for pictures, and it just kind of evolved. All these big names have started to come to Broadway in the past 10 years, and it's just this tremendous list every year that grows and grows, and I'm like, I don't have that person. I need to
Right.
get that person. I want that for my collection. So it's just constantly seeing who's up there and adding.
But I think it started for you long before, even 10 years ago or 15 years ago, when you were writing for autographs. Your passion for movies has always been there.
Yes.
I remember we used to just give you a year. Can you still do that? We would give
Maybe.
you a year and you would tell us the best picture. So
84.
Terms of endearment.
see, it's amazing.
You might want to check me on that. It's been a
Okay,
while.
Yeah, so we'll cross-check that. So the passion for the movies was always there, and you said,
Yeah.
hey, how cool would it be to actually get a picture next to them in New York? It's typically New York that you go to get these autographs.
Yeah,
right?
and now it's pretty much anywhere from Virginia to New York.
Okay.
Yep.
So what is that process like? What research goes into it? How do you know who's going to be where? How you get from this area to that area quickly? What goes into that?
Well, a lot of it is seeing who's up there, knowing the celebrities that are up there, and seeing which shows they're in, what time the shows run, what time they start, what time they'll let out, and then going from there. So what I'll do is I'll make a list of the people that I want to get, and then the show, the start time, the end time, and then I try and make a list of I'll start here. If I can get them at this point, I'll run to this show. If I can get them, then I'll run to this show. So it's really all about timing, and sometimes if the timing doesn't work out, you miss a person or two, and then sometimes it just all works out perfectly, and you can really get a good handful of people.
So you don't really have time to watch the show. You're focused on when they're coming out of those doors.
I try and see a show every time I go up,
Okay.
but I always try and build it around the whole picture schedule. So
Right.
sometimes I don't get to see the show that I want because Helen Mirren's show is 2.5 hours, but I've got people I want to get before her, so I'll see a
Right.
90-minute show instead.
Okay.
And get people in between the 90 minutes and 2.5 hours.
Wow. So do you typically go alone to this, or do you take somebody with you to take a picture? How does that work?
Predominantly I go alone. That way I can, because there's a lot of walking involved, and sometimes you have to run from show to show. There's been some cases where if I didn't run, then I would have missed that person by 5 seconds.
Right.
And sometimes it just works out perfectly when you're running. So sometimes my wife will go up with me, and she thinks it's neat to a point. Like we met Paul Reiser at the Comedy Club out in Timonium, and she thought that was neat. And meeting Jimmy Carter, she thought was really cool. But she likes it from afar too.
Right.
Like the crowds, it can be a lot of big crowds at times, and so she tries to avoid that because she can get squished in there.
Yeah. So I did some preparation for this show. I decided I was going to go to New York, just for this show. I'm going to go to New York. There was a big Goodfellas 25-year anniversary showing, and then the whole cast was supposed to be there afterwards. I'm like, this is great. I can do this. I'll go and get my picture just like Joe does. Well, didn't quite go as planned, okay? It's not that easy to get some of those big actors. So what is your advice? I mean, I did wait outside. Some of the smaller guys came out, and I got one picture with one of them, another one I tried to get a picture, and it just ended up being a blur because their security was pushing them off to the side.
Right.
I think the big guys actually went out the back door. So how do you even get them? How do you know where to stand?
I think when it comes to a big event like that, and there's going to be a lot of huge A-listers, mega superstars, you can't go to the event itself. You're going to have to put the time in either before the event and after the event to try and get them going in and coming out.
See, I wanted to see the movie.
Well, you've seen it a few times, haven't you?
I know, but it was remastered at 4K.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But yeah, you just have to put the time in, and you have to realize in New York there's autograph dealers everywhere, and they're trying to make a living out of this, so they're going to push and shove. So you have to stand your ground, and you have to see where they're at too, because chances are they've been to these places many times, and sometimes you just have to follow the crowd. Because they're in this for their autograph, and if you're in this for the picture, you have to go to extreme lengths to get it.
I see.
So sometimes you have to give up wanting to see that special movie or that show if you really want that picture with someone. And then you have to be prepared to fail sometimes.
Right. And when it comes to actually getting that picture, do you use a cell phone, a camera? I mean, like I said, I tried to take that shot with my cell phone, and it was blurry.
Right.
It doesn't seem like with the cell phone you can get the most crisp image moving. So
Right.
what do you do?
A lot of people like to use the phones now, and a lot of celebrities will take the phones out of their hands and they'll take it like this for them and hold it because they
Okay.
can see it that way. But the picture quality isn't as great, and they do blur a lot with motion. So I have my trusty little camera right
Sony,
here.
okay.
Yep, my little Sony. And essentially what I do is just hold it out like this and snap it. And 99% of the time it's pretty good. It doesn't blur.
We're not going to take one? You don't want to do one real quick?
Sure, if you want. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
let's
can
go.
do it. Yeah, okay. Ready?
All right.
Okay.
Nailed
there
it.
we go. Yeah, pretty good. Not blurry or anything. So I'll add that to my collection.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
So speaking of your collection, who would you say is at the top of your list? Give me three that really just impressed you, that you really cherish those images.
I think the three that I can think of that I really liked are, one was Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Presidents are very tough to get. If you can get them before they become president, while they're running, before they have that nomination, that's great, because once they're president, they have Secret Service for life, and it makes it next to impossible to get them. And he was down in Dundalk campaigning for Hillary back
Okay.
in 2008. So I got word of it the last minute, went down there. It was a small crowd, and managed to get a good front row spot. And he came over, and I said, "Can I take a photo?" And he said, "Sure." And he leaned in, and we just took it. So,
Very cool.
So that was a big one. And then last month, my wife and I, we went down to Georgia, and we got Jimmy and Rosalind Carter. So that was a big one, because it's tough to get the president and the first lady in the same shot. So that was really special. And then I guess my third one will probably be a tie. Tom Hanks was really good, and he was very fan-friendly. And Robin Williams was fan-friendly as well, and especially since he passed. But I will say Robin Williams sure did give a lot of time to fans the multiple times I saw him over the years.
Yeah, I was looking at your collection, and there are, quite a few celebrities in there that have since passed away. I imagine that would add, it would just make that photo that much more special to have something like that.
Indeed, yeah, especially, the work like Robin Williams has had. I mean, all the great movies he's done and everything, all the ones that everybody admires and laughs at, Mrs. Doubtfire and Good Will Hunting, and, it just makes it all the more special when it's somebody you really admire.
Yeah. Who would you say are the nicest celebrities? I'm sure you're getting to the point where you've seen some people multiple times. Who really stands out as being just a genuinely good person?
Jessica Chastain was really nice.
Yeah.
I was so.
You have to tell people who that is.
Yeah, Jessica Chastain. She was in The Help, and she was the lead in Zero Dark 30 and Tree of Life and Interstellar. So she's got a really burgeoning career. And when I saw she was doing Broadway, I thought, oh, got to get her because her career is just skyrocketing. A couple Oscar nominations, and I thought she's going to be tough as nails to get.
Yeah.
Well, huge crowd after the show, freezing cold. She would come out after every performance and take photos and introduce herself. Hi, my name's Jessica. What's your name? Genuinely look you in the eye. Wasn't in a rush. Would take her time. So that was really impressive.
It's so nice to see that, some celebrities are still grounded in that way. Because there's many, as you've met, that are not.
Yes.
Is there anybody you could think of that them or their security really did give you a hard time, just not willing to give you that autograph?
Oh, yes. Samuel L. Jackson was by far probably one of the worst ones I've ever encountered. It was raining, and it was just me and him. He got out of his car. I had the playbill from the show, and I said, would you sign? And he looked at it and went, like this, and yikes.
Wow.
So he signed, and I said, can I take a quick photo? And he said, I signed for you. That's good enough.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, okay.
Right.
So I went back a week later after the show to try again, and he was just as nasty with other people, with a larger crowd, so I kind of just wrote it off.
Well, you're persistent, if nothing else. That's important in what you're doing. So when you get there, I imagine there's a lot of other people most of the time. Do you find yourself running into the same people? Are there more and more people over the years that kind of pick up this hobby?
There's a small group of people that you see, and we don't know each other by name, but we nod and say hello, and we'll share stories about who's signing, who's not taking pictures, because that way it helps us out, because we don't want to waste time doing, going there and not getting anything. So it's a small group, but then over the years it has grown too, because people see that if you put the time and effort into it, it can be an easy hobby. 10 years ago it used to be a lot smaller crowds, and now for some people you may see 200 or 300 people. They're across the street, they're blocking the street, cars can't get down the street, so it can be really insane at times now. But there is, I would say, a small core of people that you do see on a regular basis.
Now, I know right now the passion for you is to get the image of them with you. So you would say that's more important than to have their autograph, right? You're not really pushing for the autograph at this point?
Right. I would always say if I could have my pick of the autograph or the picture, always go for the picture, because it means more. It's you and that person for that brief second in time.
And it's also neat to me, it tells the celebrity you really care, about them and about what they're doing. It's not about, hey, I'm going to get this autograph and probably sell it down the road. You're not going to be selling a picture of you and Samuel L. Jackson to somebody else. That's for you. I mean, you're doing it because you want to preserve that memory, which is a really neat thing.
Yep.
Walk me through again. What exactly do I have to do? How do I find out about these events? How do I get down there? Do I drive? And where do I go from there?
Depends where you want to go. If you want to go to New York, to me, the most economical way is to take the bus.
Right. Which one? There's a lot of buses.
Well, the mega bus is probably your cheapest, but then again, they run late, so they could ruin some of your chances with getting at places on time. So I take Hunt Valley Motor Coach or Superior Tours round trip. They're pretty reliable. They'll get you there on time in the morning, and they leave on time at night. So I would use them, and if you're going to D.C. or Pennsylvania, you're probably going to have to drive because the buses are probably not going to run to some of those areas. You're going to have good connections. Over the years, I have developed some connections with people, and we'll trade tips about who's coming and who's good to get and who's in town, and you have to put in a lot of research. I always tell people every day there's always somebody here in Baltimore. There's a celebrity or a politician here every day. You just need to know where they're at and what's going on.
Right.
So you need to see what's going on in the city, read your local magazines, local papers, see what big events are coming up. Do a lot of research that way. Search the internet, see if you can find other autograph websites or connect with someone that does it on a regular basis and see if they'll trade you some tips and some locations that are good to go to.
So even with all this preparation, though, I imagine sometimes you've got it all planned out, you get to that place and maybe they're not there. Maybe they're sick. Maybe you just put in 6 hours of work and that person didn't show up. Does that happen too?
All the time.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared for failure, and there's some days where it's just so soul-crushing that you go home and you're like, oh, I can't believe I put all that time and effort into that and have nothing to show for it. But nothing is ever 100%. No person's signing habits are ever 100%. So you have to be prepared that, it's really 50-50. So if you can go in with the mindset that you may not get them, but you do get them, then you're going to feel great.
Right.
Whereas if you don't, then you're like, okay, I tried, at least I tried, I'll get them next time.
And I'm sure the opposite happens too. You probably go to see somebody and maybe somebody is seeing that show, somebody else famous. Does that happen?
Yes. The Best Man, it had Angela Lansbury and James Earl Jones in it. There was a couple people in the audience. Mike Nichols, the director of The Graduate, was there.
Oh, cool.
Bob Balaban from Seinfeld was there, and a few other people were there. So I didn't necessarily get photos with them because those guys are a bit touchy, but I was able to walk up to them and say hello, and it said some of the work that I enjoyed, and they were very pleasant about it. But there are some days where things just work out perfectly in your favor. There was one last year, and I was going for Ewan McGregor, and Ewan McGregor was actually not very pleasant.
Ewan McGregor is in
Star Wars. He was Obi-Wan Kenobi in the most recent Star Wars, and August Osage County, and a lot of other ones. And he had been taking pictures with people over the past few weeks, and the 2 times I went, nothing. So I ran down to get Richard Chamberlain from the Thornbirds and Holly Hunter from the Piano off Broadway, and I got there right when the show was supposed to let out. It turns out the times were wrong. So the show was letting out a half hour later, so waited around. The next block over, Jolie Richardson from Nip Tuck was doing an off-Broadway show. So she should have been coming out. I ran over there, and she wasn't out. So I ran back to get Holly Hunter and Richard Chamberlain, waited. They finally came out, did the photos. I ran over to get Jolie Richardson, who should have been gone because it was an hour after the show. Literally, she was just walking out the door. I was the only one there, and I got her. And then I ran 10 blocks north because Sting, his musical, was premiering.
Oh.
And no sooner had I got there, Sting walks out the door in front of me. And I just couldn't believe it. And so I kind of positioned myself as he was walking towards me for the selfie. And he didn't say yes, but I snapped it anyway and got a semi-decent shot out of it. So I said it was just unbelievable that if I didn't run till I was exhausted, that none of that ever would have happened. I would have missed 2 or 3 of those people.
Wow.
So there's some days where it just works out perfectly. Right place, right time.
Wow, that's incredible. Any other good stories like that you can think of off the top of your head? I'm just impressed with some of these names you're throwing out. And you really have to have that knowledge, too. I mean, you seem to know everybody that's in all of these shows. You seem to know TV. You know movies. So your background has really helped you out a lot. It seems like you've watched a lot of television, watched a lot of movies.
Yep.
That seems to help you out, right?
It does, but there's times where sometimes they're so bundled up, you're not really sure that that's them, or you question yourself.
You just take it anyway.
Exactly. Say, oh yeah, can I take a photo? And if they say yes, yeah, exactly. I know one time it was a hot August day, and Al Pacino came out the stage door.
One of my favorites.
Dressed in all black, and his girlfriend, who was probably about 40 years younger than he was, and he's looking around really frantically for his car. And so I kind of just sauntered over, and I whispered to him, I said, Al, can I take a photo? And he said, sure. And so I leaned in and took the photo. Great. And I mean, my heart was beating so fast because he's such a major star. And I called all my family members. I said, I just saw Al Pacino and got a picture with him. I said it was unbelievable. One time Barack Obama was up there, and I couldn't get across the street to catch my bus home because he was literally driving by at that exact moment. Just walking by, David Letterman and Barbara Walters came out right before she retired last year. She said she would only shake hands, so that's all I got, and a couple pictures of her, but nothing with her. And then Carol Burnett, a few years ago, was at the same show I was at, and I was positioned perfectly along the rail, and I saw her walking up to go into the stage door, and I said, can I take a photo? She said, sure, and leaned in and took it, and she's very pleasant. So, I mean, those are the really special ones because you don't expect to see those people, and it just by happen chance that it happens.
Yeah, the really neat thing about that, it's that rush that you get. You know,
Exactly.
you've been doing this for 10 years and you still have that starstruck mentality when you see somebody that big. It's really incredible. Well, thank you so much for sharing this hobby with us. We just need to figure out now how to turn this into a career for you. I mean, is it paparazzi next? What's next for you?
I don't think paparazzi, because the celebrities are pretty turned off to that.
Yeah.
You know, they do everything they can to avoid. Some are actually really receptive to it. I think Kate Blanchett over the summer, you know, she would come and, you know, she knew they had a job to do and would do it, but not me, because they really don't like those guys. So.
I do think with, you know, outlets like TMZ, it's shifted a little bit where the celebrities are looking at this as publicity. You know, they're actually promoting on these shows and through the paparazzi what they have coming up next. And the ones that are successful really build an empire on paparazzi.
Yeah. But you know what? Those are like the Kim Kardashians, but some of those guys, I mean, they can also ruin your shots because you're competing with those TMZ guys and those paparazzi. They want to make money off their photos, and you get in their photos, then all they have to do is, you know, turn their flash on, and when you go to take yours, they ruin your shot.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not only competing with other people, other regular people, but you're competing with those paparazzi too, who are after something.
That's true.
And they take up spots too. They were getting there hours early for Catherine Zeta-Jones and Katie Holmes over the years. You know, they would camp out 2 hours, 3 hours before the show would end, so they could get that money shot.
Yep. So who's coming to Broadway that we're excited about? I know the guy from Glee.
Darren Criss.
Darren Criss. So you have to get him?
Well, I'd like to get him, but he is very tough.
Oh,
he was on Broadway a few years ago, and the fangirls are crazy, and they can ruin a lot. They can ruin a lot of your photos because you have to line up hours early to get there.
Yeah.
And
well, before him, it was Dexter, Michael C. Hall.
Yes.
In that position, and
but
you got him, right?
Yeah, that was actually more of an adult crowd there, and it was a small theater, kind of off the beaten path.
Right.
So that kind of worked in my favor, and he was pretty good. But when he went to his other show, more fangirls, and I heard he wasn't doing it.
Okay. I see. So who are we excited about that's coming up?
Let's see. Helen Mirren's up there now. I was excited about that.
Yeah,
I got her. Autographs only, no pictures with her.
Wow.
So sometimes they'll just do autographs and you can take pictures of them, but you can't really lean in for it.
Right.
Anne Hathaway's up there right now. She's off Broadway, so that's a big one. I'm going to go for my third try for Larry David this week from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah.
Every time I've gone, he said no, or he's had a plane to catch. So I'm hoping this is the right time at the right moment.
Just an incredible hobby, quite a collection you have. I do want to thank you for sharing that with us and coming out today. It's good to see you again, Joe.
Same here, Josh. Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
me. Yep.
Appreciate it. We've been talking with GoeCrock, former intern here at WOCV, and he's been sharing quite the collection of photos here selfies we call them, with celebrities. So thank you so much for tuning in. Do remember, you can tune in again at 2, 7, 9, or midnight, or you can watch us online at oakcrest.pegcentral.com. Thanks again and have a great day.